joined by Val Budischak, the Executive Director of the Epilepsy Foundation Delaware. Good morning, Val.
Yes. Hi, good
Thanks
morning.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you.
So Val, tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into the details of the foundation.
Sure. I am a Delaware native, grew up in Wilmington, graduated from Padua.
Okay.
And then I went to Elon University in North Carolina, came home. My parents were excited about that.
Yeah, so they came right back. That's usually what happens for Delaware natives.
And I went to, got my MSW at Temple. And then went on to get my license in social work as well. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, working in that field, and decided about 8 years ago that the Epilepsy Foundation was where I wanted to be. So.
And why is that, Val? What drew you to the foundation?
So I had interest in medical social work. I actually worked at the Ronald McDonald House for 8 years, so it's an interesting connection.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
And so I did work with a lot of children who had epilepsy and were coming to get EEGs and things like that. And I have a cousin who has epilepsy. So kind of came into place, and I love what I do.
So before we go in more detail about the Epilepsy Foundation, I think it's really important to always give our viewers more information about what is epilepsy. So not everybody knows. They may know someone or may have heard of it before, but they don't know what it really is. So describe what epilepsy is.
Good question. So before I answer that, I'm going to tell you what a seizure is, because a lot of people, when they think of a seizure, they think of shaking, falling on the ground, maybe foaming at the mouth.
Right.
And that is that is the way that seizures present sometimes, but not all the time. So what's really happening is in the brain. Everybody's brain has electrical impulses that are always going and allow your brain to function. But what happens in a seizure is that it's too much electricity. And depending on where that happens in the brain, you could get different behaviors on the outside. So those are actually symptoms. So the shaking, the falling, the unconsciousness is what we call a generalized seizure. But sometimes it could be, the symptoms of a seizure could be as simple as a brief staring spell, or confusion, or something that mimics other things like intoxication or mental illness. So that's really one of the reasons why we do what we do, because we want people to know what these look like and also know how to respond appropriately to help folks who are having seizures. So what epilepsy is really when folks tend to have more than one seizure unprovoked. So seizures just start to happen, and that's when you get a diagnosis of epilepsy. Some people may say a seizure disorder, it's the same thing. So if you hear people say they have a seizure disorder, it's the same thing as epilepsy, just depends on how you like to say it.
Okay. No, and thank you for that. I was very informative, because you're right. People may confuse the two or may not understand, but that does help paint that picture of what it is. So tell us a little bit more about the Epilepsy Foundation.
Yeah, so what we do, we have a couple different arms of our programming. We do support programs for people with epilepsy and their families. So we have support groups, we have self-management classes where we teach mindfulness and relaxation techniques. We have, people can call and get referrals to other organizations or questions about IEPs in school for their children, or discrimination, questions at getting a job and those kinds of things. But we also have training. So we do a seizure first aid certification course. It's a national certification course similar to CPR. It's 2 years, it's free. And we offer it in conjunction with the Epilepsy Foundation of America. We're an affiliate of those. So we do support, we do training, we do advocacy on behalf of people with epilepsy. And we also, again, are affiliate with the national organization, so we support their research efforts to try to find better treatments for people with epilepsy as well.
Val and I were speaking before the show started, and my mom suffers from seizures. She has most of her life, and she has experienced both of the kind that you're talking about. It started as like sort of the violent seizure shaking, and now it's turned into more of the dozing off, through the window, not quite sure what's happening. So I know exactly what you're saying, and the resources are so helpful.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So what would be some early signs of epilepsy? How can someone identify epilepsy? If there's a way to identify it.
It depends on what type of seizure the person is having. If they're having a generalized tonic-clonic, the one I described that most people know about, you probably kind of get an idea of what's going on. If it's more of a subtle form, there's another kind called absence, generalized absence, where it's almost like a brief staring spell for a couple seconds. And the way I tell folks to be able to identify that as a pattern. So folks who have that kind of seizure might have, they last a few seconds, but they could have 50 to 100 a day. So we train a lot of teachers and we'll say, we're not expecting you to diagnose, but if you see like a pattern of strange behavior where the student is kind of zoning out for multiple times a day, kind of just make a mark of it. And that's helpful. It's a pattern.
And I'm sure that's very helpful in helping come up with the official diagnosis of it, so then you can help treat and move forward for that individual.
Exactly.
I own a small business in Delaware, and I had a former employee of mine that opened up to me and said that they occasionally have seizures. Obviously, very little different than epilepsy, but they have seizures. They actually told me on how to handle it in the event they were to have a seizure, like what are the steps to take. And I was very, very grateful for that because I want to help. I wouldn't know. I don't know anybody that went through it, what this person was going through, but it was very helpful for me as the employer to be ready, to be prepared. And I appreciated they were so honest with me about their illness and what they were going through. Now, for let's say someone who is not comfortable talking about their condition, what advice can you give them if they were going to apply for a job? And do you encourage them to open up about, their illness or what they're going through, or do you feel that's not a good idea?
It's really a personal decision. What we recommend is when you're going through the application process to go through it just as you would if you didn't have epilepsy, and then after you're offered the job, then if you feel comfortable, you can disclose, and if you need any accommodations covered under ADA, then you can ask for it at that time. But it's really not, they're not mandated to tell folks that they have epilepsy, so it's really a personal decision.
And I was grateful for it, because this individual was incredible. I had no idea, but I was appreciative because in the event she were to have a seizure or an emergency, I was able to help. And it made me feel more confident when, in that moment. And I appreciated that. Nothing against that person. It just, it was something more just helping educate me.
Exactly.
And I like that the foundation provides those resources.
Yes, and we can help you talk through it, work through it, decide how and when to disclose, and that's a subject that we talk about a lot in our support groups and things like that.
So Val, what kind of, you mentioned the support groups. For people watching who sort of don't know where to turn, maybe they do suffer from seizures, or maybe they're a caregiver of someone with epilepsy, how can they get in touch and find out more information to kind of get started with the foundation and kind of utilize those resources, find out what they are? Sure.
The best way is to visit our website, www.efde.org, and you can find resources, you can click on our programs, you can find my email. That's the best way to contact me and get you connected with whatever, support events. We have, support group parties and outings at a park, and we just try to create a community. And that's what I love most about what I do, is that people support each other, and that's such a powerful tool for living your best life with epilepsy.
And I also want to mention, that you had mentioned that this is statewide. It's not just Wilmington, not just Newcastle County, but from Claymont all the way down to Fenwick Island. You guys, cover.
Yeah, and our largest, probably supportive community is in Kent County, right around Dover. So we have a really strong group there. So
So what is living your best life with epilepsy?
Did you like that? It's hard to explain. People with epilepsy, a lot of times it's not the seizures that they identify as being the most difficult thing to live. It's, sometimes there's memory issues, sleep issues, and, can I drive? Things like that. So being able to manage life, everything that everyone else deals with, but also having epilepsy and just being able to thrive, that's what we aim to do.
Could you share with us maybe a success story for our listeners and our viewers tuning in? I always feel it's important to really share a story. If you can come up with one off the top of your head.
I mentioned the group that we have in Kent County, and they're very close. There was a young woman about 17, 18, came to the group first with her mom, and you could tell her mom kind of drug her there, and she's kind of sullen. But she was just diagnosed, and she kept coming back, and you could see her blossom through the support of other folks who have had epilepsy their whole lives and were able to, be a nurse and have a family, and show her, that you can have a full, healthy, happy life with epilepsy. And now she has her own advocacy group. She does a team for our 5K. So that's what I mean, that support that you find with each other. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Before we let you go, we want to ask about events, fundraisers
yes.
coming up. Anything you can let us know?
Yeah, so we have a spring event. Stay tuned. Check our website, EFDE.org, for that coming up late March, early April.
Okay.
We have a 5K early June in Glasgow, and we have a fun run in Kent County coming up in September. And then November, we always have an epilepsy conference to celebrate Epilepsy Awareness Month, and that's at
Full
Christiana.
calendar. That's fantastic. That's great.
EFDE.org,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right. So all that information is right on the website.
Yes.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent. Val, thank you,
thank you so
so
much.
much
Important
for
information.
joining
Very
us. Yes, very important information, very informative, and we appreciate you coming on the show to really let everyone know what is the Epilepsy Foundation, and again, continue success with all of your efforts.
Thank you so much.
Of
you.
course, of course.
What's up, everyone? It's your main man, Big Iv, the talk of the town, Mr. DETVCH.com, and I'm here with my wonderful and amazing co-host,
Vincenza.
We just stopped by to tell you to be sure, if you want any information on what's going on in Wilmington and to meet some dynamic people doing some amazing and great things, be sure to watch us live on Good Morning Wilmington on Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 p.m.
Oh, Ivan, 10 a.m.
Which he said, 10 a.m.
Listen to me. That's why he has me here. But yes, tune in live, 10 a.m. Monday and Wednesday on Good Morning Wilmington.
DETVCH.com.